and I'm going to lead you through today's webinar, which is entitled Easily Build Accurate and Attractive Org Charts with OrgPlus. Here's a look at what we're going to cover during today's session. So I'll give you a brief introduction to Altula, which is the company that's presenting this webinar. I'll also do a brief overview of my background. Then we'll talk about the OrgPlus product line, and this will be a good chance for you to see the different levels of the product that are available. It'll be particularly helpful if you're kind of still in the market and wanting to compare the different levels and see what would be a good fit for you. The main heart of the presentation today will be a demonstration of OrgPlus. So this will be a hands-on demonstration of the main features of the product. And all of this will be followed by a brief question and answer session. As we go through today's session, however, if you have questions that come up, please do feel free to type them in at any point. You can type them into the questions or the chat pane, either one of those side panes, and I'll be able to see those and address those at the end of the session. Okay, so let's get started. Here's a little bit of background about Altula. So Altula is a company that was founded and formed by some of the original people who actually created OrgPlus. OrgPlus has since been purchased by a larger company called Insperity, and Altula partners with Insperity as the international distributor of OrgPlus. Our headquarters are in San Francisco, and we have an EMEA office in the UK as well. And we also work with distributors and resellers in all the major international markets. Here's a little bit of my background. I've been working with OrgPlus since 2006 and have been an educator for 16 years. In addition to these bi-weekly webinars, I also teach basic and advanced training sessions on a weekly basis, and as well as custom courses. And here's that overview of the OrgPlus product family that I mentioned. So we're going to focus today on the middle level of the product called OrgPlus Professional, and that is really the most popular product in our line, and it works for most organizations. We'll talk about those features in just a minute, but in case you are a smaller organization or one that knows that you'll need to build smaller charts with, let's say, fewer than 100 employees, then OrgPlus Standard can be a really good fit. That is more of a manual tool, so you go in and you build the boxes, you populate your data manually, and so again, for smaller charts that works really well. You can print the charts to share them with others. You have lots of formatting features, so you can give your charts a nice professional look. If you're building somewhat larger charts or really want to be able to incorporate a lot of data, and if you want to be able to keep your charts up to date through a process called a data refresh, then OrgPlus Professional, which I'll demo today, is a really good choice. With OrgPlus Professional, you can very quickly build even very large charts through this process of importing your data from an external data source. So we'll talk about what that looks like, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a few minutes. In addition to being able to build your charts quickly, you have lots of options for giving the charts a nice look through all sorts of formatting options. You can refresh your charts, so you can re-import your data at any point to keep your charts up to date. And then another key feature is the ability to publish. So unlike with OrgPlus Standard, with OrgPlus Professional, you can actually convert the file to different file types like PowerPoint, PDF, HTML, so different formats that would make it easy for you to share the charts with others. OrgPlus Premium is one more step up from OrgPlus Professional. This is a good option if you are wanting to, in addition to using all the features of OrgPlus Professional, you are wanting to, let's say, do some manual modeling with your charts. So you want to go in and add boxes, delete them, move them around to project, let's say, a reorganization, something like that. And then you also want to be able to see these changes that you make listed on the Track Changes panel and use that information to go in and get approval for those changes. You can actually generate what are called personnel action notices. It's a kind of report available on that side panel. There are a few other reporting features available in OrgPlus Premium as well. All right, so just a reminder, if you do have questions that come in during this session, use the questions or the chat pane and just type in your questions there, and I will address those at the end of the session. All right, so what I'm going to do is jump into an example data source. So this is where we'll get started today, and then we'll go into OrgPlus and I'll actually import data from the file that we're looking at right now. So this is an example Excel data source file. OrgPlus can accept data from any number of data source types. Excel is very commonly used, so that's what I'll use as my example, but just keep in mind that you have lots of other possibilities too, and I'll show you a list of those options shortly. Whatever data source file type you use, there are a couple of key data fields that you need to have. This allows OrgPlus to understand your hierarchy and build it for you. So first of all, you need some sort of unique identifier for each record. We recommend using employee ID number or position ID number. So it just kind of depends on how you store your data and identify your positions within your organizational structure as to which of those you would use. It does need to be truly a unique identifier, though. You wouldn't want to use, for example, employee names where you might run into duplicates. So you've got your unique identifier, and then the other required field is a reports to field. The reports to field is how you tell OrgPlus how to build the hierarchy, who reports to whom. And in the reports to field here in this example, you can see that I have listed the ID number for each person's manager. So notice that with a person like Jim Stein, I can see his ID number in the employee ID field, and then in the reports to field I can see that he reports to the person with ID number 1211, and that corresponds to the CEO, Andrea Hebert. There are several other people here at the top of the chart who directly report up to the CEO as well. So we've got Rashmi and Lynn. So notice that with all these people that I'm selecting here, they all report up to ID number 1211. You might have noticed that in cell B2 I have put a 0, and that is telling the system, OrgPlus, that Andrea should be the topmost box in this chart. She doesn't report to any other person. So we put a 0 there. We could also just leave that cell empty, and either way it tells the system to put her as the topmost box. The order of these fields, by the way, of these columns doesn't matter. They don't have to be in, the data does not have to be in columns A or B. They can be found anywhere in the data source, but I usually do keep them here at the front because they are my most important fields. I want to make sure that I have those. I'm going to skip over to some other fields that you would want to include. So here we've got name and title, and then here are some other just kind of basic fields that you might want. So something like org unit or department name you would want to include, and then any other field is really up to you. So keep in mind that with OrgPlus you can store a lot of data in the system and then use it in different ways. You don't have to reveal it right in your chart boxes. You can just have the data stored and then use it for different purposes, like running occasional counts or salary roll-ups or something like that. You could also use it for conditionally formatting boxes. So for example, I have right over here in column L, I have employee type. Maybe I don't want to show in my boxes the label full-time or part-time or contractor, but by having this data available, I could use it for formatting boxes so that maybe my contractors have a slightly different box shape or a fill color or something like that. Even sensitive data, these are fields that we could store, again, in the data source and ultimately in OrgPlus, but then we choose how to use these fields. So here we've got, sensitive information like salary, and we have last rating, so how did each person do on their last performance review, and so on. I also often like to include different kind of contact or office location related fields. So here we've got work location, work phone extension, and then we also have email. So these are all optional fields. Again, the only fields that are required are employee ID and reports to, and then the basic fields that you would want to have so that you could show these in your boxes are name and title, and then maybe something like department or org unit. Keep in mind that you can keep things really simple, so you don't have to have a lot of information in your data source initially, because you can always build a basic chart to start, see how things look, and get comfortable with that chart. You can always then go back later and add additional fields if you want to. All right, so now let's jump into OrgPlus and see what we can do with this data. When you launch OrgPlus, you get a welcome screen, and it offers you also the chance to launch the import wizard. The import wizard is what we see on the screen right here. If at any point you had closed the import wizard and needed to access it again, an easy way to get to it is by going up in the top left-hand corner to the File menu, and then File and Imports Data is what you'd want to look for. Okay, so on the import wizard, notice that we're given a couple of options on the first screen. We can say that our employee data is ready to be imported, so we can get started right away, or you have the option, show me how to get started. So if I choose the second option, and in the bottom right hand corner click Get Started, I just want to show you that we have a couple of screens that can be really helpful. So the first couple imports you do, if you need a reminder of how to set up your data source, you can look at this screen. In the bottom right hand corner you also have a link to a sample data file, so that can be a great reminder of how to set up your data as well. Now I'm going to go back though, and I'm going to say my employee data is ready to be imported. I'll click the Get Started button. Here's that list I mentioned of the various data sources that you can use to bring in data to OrgPlus. So Excel is what I'll be using. That's what's selected here at the top, but look at all of your other options. So something as simple as a text file could be used all the way down to a database connection file. So lots of possibilities. I'm going to go to the next screen. This is where I actually browse to the file I'll be using. So I'm selecting my file, and then I'll click the next button again. And this is going to open a series of screens and steps that we find in the import wizard. Now I won't go through all of these in detail, but what I'll do is just point out kind of the key features of the import wizard. The first screen is a great chance for me to make sure that I've selected the right data source, because notice that I can basically preview the file in this window. I'll click the next button, and I'm going to skip over this screen as well. And then let's focus on this screen, which is called Hierarchy Verification. This is important because it gives us a chance to see how OrgPlus is going to build our hierarchy before the chart is actually built. So it's just a chance for us to see if things look like they're in the right position. I can see that Andrea is going to be the topmost person in this chart. Looking at the connecting lines drawn to her, I can see who's going to report to her. So Jim Stein and Rashmi, and down here a little bit further, Lynn. And then for any person under Andrea who is also a manager, I can see who reports to them. So for example, with Lynn Brewer, there's connecting lines drawn to her, and they lead to Sue and Brenda and Lisa. The idea here is I'm just wanting to see that there is a hierarchy represented. Everyone isn't in a single column. There's some kind of depth to this list. So as long as this looks good, I'll click Next. I'm going to skip this final screen and click Finish. And you'll see there in a matter of seconds, OrgPlus builds the chart for us. So it's really quick and easy to go from a data source file to a fully built chart. We'll talk about the boxes and what they contain in just a minute. But the first thing I want to point out is you'll notice that if I zoom in a little bit, automatically we are getting these little icons, they're tool buttons under some boxes. So for example, Kathy Finneran has an arrow below her box. That's what's called a subchart arrow. OrgPlus is set up in such a way that it's going to divide your chart into interconnected pieces. Rather than seeing all of the chart boxes on the screen at the same time, it's breaking the chart up so that it's easier to view the boxes, and it's also very easy to navigate from one subchart or page to the next. That subcharting feature is really flexible. You can take out the subchart breaks altogether. You can also change where they're inserted. So as a starting point, let me zoom out again, and I'm going to go up to the Insert menu. I'll go to Remove All, and let's just take out the subchart break so you can see what this looks like. So this isn't a huge chart. It's 79 boxes, but it's enough boxes on the screen that in order to view this, I would really have to zoom in order to take a closer look and be able to read the data in the boxes. So subcharting is going to be, I think, a good option for this particular chart. If I were to print the chart once it's been subcharted, each subchart will print to its own page. if I publish the chart to PowerPoint, PDF, HTML, or to something called the OrgPlus plugin, in all of those different formats, the subchart arrows can be enabled so that your viewer can actually use them to navigate from one subchart to the next as well. So it's a really good option. I'm going to go back up to the Insert menu, and this time I'm going to choose this Create option, because then I can choose where my subcharts are going to be inserted. And I think what I'll do is, one second, I think I have, there we go. I wanted to deselect a box. I had a box selected. I want to try subcharting using fields. So what this means is I'm using the drop-down menu, which shows a list of my fields that I imported, and I can choose one of these like org unit. That's telling OrgPlus go out and find my managers in the chart. Anytime you find a manager who has a unique value in the org unit field, insert a break at that point. There are several other options for subcharting, and these you can read about in the help file, which I'll point out in just a minute. With subcharting, what I find is that it can be difficult sometimes to imagine what the results are going to be, but subcharting is so flexible that the best choice is just to go in, try subcharting in one way. If you don't like it, you can always come right back up to the subchart wizard and try subcharting in a different way. So I'm going to click OK here, and there we go. So I like this look because it's showing just my executive team on the screen at one time. So Andrea, her assistant, and then the 5 other people who report up to her. If I use the subchart arrows, I can now navigate to each of these subcharts. So all the sales team is on one page under Rashmi. If I go to Lynn Brewer, here's everybody in finance on one page as well. So I can navigate using those arrows. Something else you might have noticed is over to the right, the subchart panel has automatically opened. This is a way that I can also navigate just by clicking on the name of any subchart. So it's really quick and easy to jump from one subchart to the next. Okay, let's talk about formatting. So the boxes have a particular look as a starting point because OrgPlus automatically applies a just very basic template, and that's dictating the shape of the boxes, their fill color, and their content. So what fields are on display. So you can see if I zoom in, we have just name and title in our boxes. Now let's say as a starting point I just want to try on some different looks. So there are some built-in templates in OrgPlus that you can use to give your chart another look, and that's a great starting point. Then I'll show you how you can do some manual formatting as well. So I'm going to go up to the View menu, and I'm going to open a side panel that will allow me to see these various templates. So I'll click on Templates. So what we're seeing here right now are what are called design templates. And so I can go in, take a look at one of these design templates, and just double click on it, and it's going to apply this formatting to my chart. So some of them affect the background color, some of them affect the shape of the boxes, the fill color, and I can just keep doing this until I get a look that I want. The other thing I can do though is go up to the View menu again, and this time open a panel that's called Views. The Views panel contains a certain kind of template that actually formats the box layout, so what fields are on display. So if I come into this one called Directory and just double click on this little label here that says Directory, it's applying to my charts this different box layout. So if I zoom in, notice what we see here. In our boxes we have name and title, we have work location, work phone, and email address. So it's a great way of quickly seeing what it would look like to change my box contents. Now let's say I'm going to undo in the very top left hand corner. I've got this undo button. I'm going to go back a couple of steps. So let me go here. I'm going to reapply directory. Okay, so as a starting point, let's say I'm going to start with this look, but I decide that I want to change the layout of my boxes a little bit. If I right click on any box, that brings up a menu that allows me a shortcut to get to box properties. So even after I have applied a template, I can still come in and do whatever formatting I want to. So I'm going to change the shape of my boxes. I'm going to give them a different fill color. I like the look of the border, so I'll leave that. And then I'm going to jump to the box layout tab because I decide that I want to take out a couple fields, like let's say departments. And by taking them out, what I mean is in this kind of workspace that we have, which is a preview of what our boxes currently contain, I can come in and I can click and drag fields out, and I can drag other fields in. So if I decide that there's another field on my list of fields over to the left that I do want to display, let's say org unit, I can drag and drop it in my box. And I can also take the label off of a field if I want to. If I know that I want all of my boxes to have the same look, a great shortcut is to come down to the bottom left-hand corner of this window and say Apply to Entire Charts. I'll click OK, and there we go. Let me zoom in so you can see that. So there's a change to my box shape, fill color, here's that org unit field, and then I also took out the email field and the department field. Because I said apply this to the entire chart, if I go to any other subcharts, all the boxes have the same look. Now I might decide that I want to do a little bit of formatting on what's called the master page. It's a lot like the slide master in PowerPoint. So it allows you to format the background elements for all of your different subcharts. So I'm going to access that master page by going up to the View menu and to Master Page over to the left. Then I'll go to the Home menu and to Chart Properties, and that allows me to select a background color. And if I do, I'm going to do Fill Effects here, and that way, if I want to, I can do a gradient for the background. And so I'll choose that, click OK, and OK again. Up at the top, we've got this header area, so that's a great place to put our company name. And also on the Home menu, I can format that, so I'll make it a little bit bigger, maybe give it some color and change the font. And then one other thing I'll show you here, I can go up to the Insert menu. If I wanted to insert a picture, for example, the company logo, I could do that. And this is a great place to have that on the master page. So you will see, I'll just resize that, maybe put it up in a corner. And then if I go back to View and go to my normal view, as I navigate through my subcharts, you'll see that they now have the same background color and the same label at the top there, the company name and logo. Okay, so I've given the chart the look that I want. I'm now going to go and take a minute to save it, and I'll show you after we save it how easy it will be to go in and keep it up to date through a data refresh. Okay, so I will save this chart. Now by a data refresh, what I mean is we want to re-import the data. That way any changes that have been made to the data source are going to be reflected in the chart, and we don't have to go into the chart and manually make those changes. So looking at the head of the company, remember that her title is Chief Executive Officer. So let's say that it's a month down the road and we actually are updating her title and we want to add the word President. So I'm just going back to my Excel file and making the change here. I kept it open in a different window. So I'm making the change. I could, make any number of changes. Let's say that we have hired a new person as a CFO. So I'll just make this change. Oh, let's see. I was in the wrong spot. So let's do it right here. Okay, so I'm just putting in a new name. I'm going to save these changes. I'm going to go back to my charts, and I don't have to find these records and update them manually. Instead, I go up to the Data menu, and I simply click Refresh Data. I got a message here that's letting me know that this refresh is happening, and when it's completed, it lets me know that too, and it offers to show me a log of any changes that have been made. That log is just a simple notepad entry that's saved for you automatically to your My Charts folder, so you can always go and see it at any point. I'll just skip that step though. I'll say no, I don't need to see that right now, and here we can see the changes that have been made. So here's the change to the title of for the head of the company. So I added the word president, and then looking at Connie Anderson here, this had been Lynn Brewer's box. Now we can see that this new person has been hired. Okay. One final thing that we'll cover here is publishing the chart. So we are ready to share it with others throughout the organization, and remember that if I wanted to share the file as an OrgPlus chart file, I would need to send it to people who can open that file type, so they would have to have OrgPlus installed. So if I want to share it more widely in the organization, and I know others don't have licenses for OrgPlus, then I need to think about converting this. And so I do that by going up to File and Publish To, and there are lots of good options here. So PowerPoint is really commonly used, as is PDF. So let me go ahead and publish this first to PowerPoint so you can see what that looks like. So it's going to open this publishing wizard and give me some options. And while I'm doing this, just a reminder, if you have not had a chance yet to type in any questions that have come up for you, go ahead and do that into the questions or the chat panes, and I will take those questions just as soon as we're finished with publishing. One of the things I like to make sure that I enable as far as the publishing options on the first screen is this one here, include navigation arrows. That way people can see and use the subchart arrows to navigate throughout the chart. On the next screen, I could apply a PowerPoint template if I wanted to. So if you have a company template that has your slide master elements, your background color, maybe your company labels and auto text elements and things like that, you could apply a template at this point. But here I'm going to just stick with the background that we created. I can decide also if I want to include a cover page, a table of contents. Here you can see I'm just disabling those features. Chart contents shows me all the subcharts that will be published here. And then I often like to include an index, so I'll just keep that piece. I'll go to next, and you'll see the final screen just allows me to choose where I want to save the file and what to call it, and it's going to launch PowerPoint here when we're finished. So I will click Finish. And in just a second, that's going to open up and show us the results. All right. And we are almost there. Okay, so let me jump to PowerPoint. And so here is the chart published to PowerPoint. And if I go to slideshow from current slide, notice that when I'm in that slideshow mode, I can navigate using the subchart arrows. I chose to include an index too, so if I come to the index and look up a person like Kenneth Atkins, I can click on his slide number and it jumps us to his slide. Okay, so it comes out really well. And then if I go back to OrgPlus, I'm just going to quickly publish the chart again, but this time to PDF just so you can see some of the options here. So there is this include navigation arrows also. So I'm going to keep that selected. A lot of the same options here as far as like include a cover page and table of contents. I'm going to go right to finish. And just for comparison's sake, I'll show you what this looks like. There we go. So here's a chart published to PDF, and I can either navigate with the subchart arrows again from one page to the next, or I could also jump over and use the bookmarks over to the left and use those to navigate. And then I included the index as well. Okay, so really good options if you wanted to now send this to a colleague and share it. So that ends the demonstration part of today's session. I'm going to just stay on the call here for a minute or two longer to see if any questions come in. So far, none have come in, but just in case, I'll stay on the line. And for anyone who needs to jump off the call, thank you so much for being here today. I hope you find it helpful. Oh, and I wanted to mention before we go, I mentioned that help file. If you go into OrgPlus, you go up to the far top right-hand corner of the screen. There is a little button with a question mark on it, and that opens the help file. You'll find lots of good resources there. You can also go to orgplus.com, and there are lots of resources there as well that will help you get started with OrgPlus. So thanks again for being here.